It's the 15th of February 2017 and you're watching Primetime News on Newsfirst.
Well, speaking of 15, Mahina, over 15 protests took place in the island today, across the island rather, causing severe discomfort to the locals, commuters in Colombo and several other cities in the country.
That's right. We'll take an in-depth look into these protests that were held today, but first a look at your headlines.
Prime Minister Wickremesinghe urges Sri Lankan asylum seekers in Australia to return home. Proposal to commute the death sentence to life imprisonment. Special commodity levy on coconut oil and palm oil reduced by 20 rupees. Chief Ministers call for reinstatement of local government powers taken over by the Urban Development Authority.
Lanka දේශපාලන ඉතිහාසයේ පළාත් සභාවක් සම්මත කරන තාමත්ම කෙටි ප්‍රඥප්තිය අපි ගෙනෙන්න සියලු කටයුතු සූදානම්.
මේ ගැන මම හිතන්නේ අපේ මහමැතිතුරුන්ට කලබල වෙන්න කිසිම අවශ්‍යතාවයක් නැහැ.
VK Sasikala surrenders and placed in prison.
President Maithripala Sirisena says scholars and intellectuals should come forward to provide a better service to the country and the people.
The President was speaking at the ceremony to mark the 75th anniversary of Kegol Vidyalaya today. President Sirisena opened the exhibition which was organized to mark the 75th anniversary celebrations of the Kegol Vidyalaya. World leaders often mention several factors that they respect about our country. One is free education and its quality. There is a free health service and its quality. It is our responsibility to create scholars and intellectuals for a better tomorrow. They should not be left idle. They must take social leadership. In a competitive society, when scholars and intellectuals come forward, most of the issues in society can be resolved.
Well, two memorandums of understanding were signed between Sri Lanka and Australia today in the fields of economic development and sports. Now, the signing took place when Prime Minister Wickremesinghe met his Australian counterpart Malcolm Turnbull as part of his three-day official visit. Now, we'll have this story later on in the bulletin. Till then, we move on to our next story. A proposal has been made to the Cabinet to consider the ability of reducing the death penalty to life imprisonment. The proposal was made in a recommendation submitted by the Interinstitutional Task Force, which was tasked with the identification of prison reforms.
Minister of Justice Vijayadasa Rajapaksa and Minister of Prison Reforms, Rehabilitation, Resettlement and Hindu Religious Affairs D.M. Swaminathan had presented the recommendations made by the Interinstitutional Task Force appointed for the identification of judicial and legal reasons for minimizing congestion in prisons and prison reforms to Cabinet yesterday. The proposals include considering the ability of reducing death penalty to life imprisonment, the use of community-based corrections productively, and enabling the payment of fines as installments instead of imposing imprisonment for those who fail to pay fines. It has also recommended utilizing police bailing method according to provisions in Bail Act. These recommendations are to be presented to Parliament in due course. Cabinet has also reached several decisions with regard to minimizing the use of coconuts for the production of coconut oil in a bid to control the prices of coconuts in the domestic market. Thereby, the special commodity levy imposed on a kilogram of coconut oil will be reduced from 150 rupees to 130 rupees. In addition, the special commodity levy on a kilogram of crude coconut oil, crude palm oil, will be reduced from 130 rupees to 110 rupees. Moreover, the special commodity levy of a kilogram of palm kernel and refined palm oil will be reduced from 150 rupees to 130 rupees. The sparring of words took place at the Cabinet media briefing when decisions on rice were being announced. Satasa brought down the price from 90 rupees to 75 rupees. If Satasa starts selling more than 5 kilograms, all the wholesale traders will come and purchase all the stocks and resell it for 90 rupees. We have imposed a 5 kilogram condition to stop such acts. Those were distributed. That is the annual process. They were released to the mill owners.
ඉගෙන ගන්න දුන්නේ පහුගිය ජනවාරි මාසේ වාර්තාවක් නිකුත් කරන මෙට්‍රික් ටන් 7947ක් අස්ථානගත වෙලා කියලා. ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන්
We will inquire and let you know. Cabinet has granted approval for the proposal to formulate a new act for the National Lotteries Board. The National Lotteries Board had generated an income of 17.5 billion rupees for the year 2015, and the objective of the new act is to overcome the shortcomings in the existing act. Accordingly, the proposal made by the Minister of Finance to instruct the legal draftsman to prepare a new act for the NLB, considering the present market trends, was approved by the Cabinet of Ministers.
Welcome back to the news. The Unity Through Power Devolution movement convened a media briefing today.
For 2 years, we silently observed how the powers vested in the President were vested with the Parliament, the Prime Minister and Cabinet. However, today a situation has arisen where the President himself has intervened to resolve certain issues when they cannot be resolved. On the SITEM issue, the President promised that he would not allow any group, be it the university students or the private students, to suffer any injustice through the government. This is what we expect from a leader. Our expectations have been fulfilled. When they were trying to loot through the Horana tire factory, he intervened. When an issue arose regarding the pensions of disabled war heroes, he rectified this as well. If we look at the past 2 weeks, it is evident that a great deal of work has been undertaken by the office of the President. That is why we say that certain issues have to be taken into the hands of the President himself.
Well, as mentioned earlier on in the bulletin, 2 memorandums of understanding were signed between Sri Lanka and Australia today in the fields of economic development and sports. The signing took place when Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe met his Australian counterpart Malcolm Turnbull as part of his 3-day official visit.
The visiting Sri Lankan delegation, including the Prime Minister, was welcomed by the Australian Prime Minister with a guard of honour. The 2 memorandums of understanding were signed thereafter. The MOU on sports development was signed between the Minister of Sports, Dayasri Jayasekara, and his Australian counterpart, Greg Hunt. The MOU for development cooperation was signed between Bryce Hutchison, the Australian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, and Secretary to the Ministry of Finance, RHS Samaratunga.
We signed 2 important agreements today. One on economic development. But that was not complete without the one on sports. Sri Lanka's position as a strategic hub in the Indian Ocean has now been recognized, and we seek to build on it for business and for logistics, for manufacturing. Asia Pacific is full of potential, of exciting ideas, and this is where the future lies.
The Sri Lankan Australian community has made an enormous contribution to Australia, the most successful multicultural society in the world, in fields as diverse as business, culture, education, law, medicine and sport. And they are part of the bedrock on which our bilateral relationship is built. Now, I mentioned sport just now, and we were also pleased to witness the signing of a memorandum of understanding between Sri Lanka and Australia to strengthen cooperation in sport. Our close relationship and our many ties are only strengthened by our friendly competition on the cricket pitch, which we agreed was the only area in which we are rivalrous.
Subsequently, the 2 Prime Ministers answered the queries of the media.
Mr Wickremesinghe, can I just ask, when you took power, you criticised Mr Turnbull's predecessor, Tony Abbott, for essentially turning a blind eye to human rights abuses that were committed by your predecessor, Mr Rajapaksa. And the suggestion from you, sir, to the Australian was that they had turned a blind eye in order to secure cooperation on people smuggling. So do you stand by those comments?
Tony Abbott is known to me, and we felt that there could have been more emphasis on the human rights situation in Sri Lanka. Now that's over. We are back in power.
So no long-term damage to the relationship?
No, it's not. Why am I here?
We're old friends. Last time we met, we were in opposition. Each of us.
The duo spoke to the media following the meeting, and Prime Minister Wickremesinghe expressed these thoughts on illegal migrants.
Well, they left Sri Lanka illegally. They are welcome to return to Sri Lanka, and we won't prosecute them. So they can come back to Sri Lanka, and we will help them. But remember, they broke the law to come into Australia, attempting to come to Australia.
Chief Minister of the Western Province, Isuradeva Priya, says that if the powers that were taken away from provincial councils by the Urban Development Authority is not transferred to the local government bodies, a resolution will be passed at all provincial councils against it.
The power to approve plans given to local government bodies has been taken over by the Urban Development Authority. To my knowledge, I am aware that this was not due to the wishes of Subject Minister Patali Ranawaka, but due to the wishes of the Chairman of the Urban Development Authority. Therefore, I am bringing this to the attention of the Honourable Minister. I urge for the decision taken by the UDA Chairman to be reversed and for the powers to be transferred back to the local government institutions. If he doesn't respond to the request, we have made preparations to table a resolution for the first time of Sri Lanka's political history. The resolution has already been formulated. Accordingly, we hope to adopt to this resolution in order to transfer the power that has been exercised by the UDA alone. All preparations have been made for local government institutions to approve plans once this resolution is enacted. A chairman cannot make decisions on his own at the UDA. This is because it is an institution which comes under the purview of the municipalities and local government institutions. The minister is fully aware of our actions. Our minister is aware, and he also studied it well. First, we reached this decision after an extensive study. Secondly, I believe there is no need for the Chief Ministers to worry, as this does not violate the Constitution, nor is it taking over the powers of the provincial councils.
Journalists posed questions to the Minister of Parliamentary Reforms and Mass Media during the Cabinet media briefing today. Speaking on a document which has been released to the media on regulating media institutions yesterday, the Secretary to the Ministry of Parliamentary Reforms and Mass Media said the document has been released without his knowledge.
Whatever cabinet decision that I put forward as a subject minister is issued as a cabinet paper after obtaining the signature of the ministry secretary. This is something which was made aware to the entire country. The very next day after the media briefing, we informed that this was approved by the cabinet. It is the ministry secretary who drafts a cabinet paper.
Minister, the secretary raises the allegation that there is a faction which is moving faster than him in terms of the Right to Information Act.
Well, if there is someone moving ahead, we will allow them to do so.
All of us understand that there is some sort of row between you, the Ministry Secretary and the Director General. They conceal what they know when they speak.
When the Minister and the Secretary make two different statements, it is the Minister's statement which is valid. It is the Secretary of any ministry which drafts a cabinet paper. If the Secretary is saying that he is unaware of what is the cabinet paper, it becomes quite confusing, doesn't it?
At the same discussion yesterday, the Secretary also said that the government is ready to take a policy-based decision on social media, Facebook in particular, and that there is a high-level discussion in progress. I would like to know what the discussion is.
I do not know what he said exactly, I wasn't there, but I do not think there is a mechanism anywhere in the world to regulate social media websites. Our duty is to educate the general public on how to use these. Apart from that, the government has no intention on stopping it or controlling it.
In a headline-making story tonight, over 15 protests took place during the course of the day across many parts of the island. Here's a look at where and why protesters took to the streets today.
The access road to the golf face green from the Lotus roundabout was temporarily closed due to several protests taking place near the Presidential Secretariat. This resulted in a massive traffic congestion in Fort Colombo. A group of disabled war heroes were demonstrating, seeking their salary arrears be paid. 10 representatives were permitted to enter the President's office for a discussion, prompting the other protesters to disperse. The President will fulfill the request of the 2,500 ex-servicemen with a service record of less than 12 years after amending the Armed Forces Pensions and Gratuities Codes. They were not asked to leave. They left the service voluntarily. Though they did not complete 12 years of service, their pension benefits are given considering they completed their 12 years of service. A group of persons from Gampaha who would lose their lands to the Central Expressway engaged in a protest march from opposite the Fort Railway Station. The group marched to the Lotus roundabout and attempted to proceed to the Presidential Secretariat. However, only a few representatives were permitted to enter the premises for talks. The Lotus Road in Colombo was obstructed due to a protest citing that pensions were terminated by the privatization of the textile industry department through government influence. According to our correspondents, the area surrounding the Lotus Road was obstructed for around 5 hours as a result of these 3 protests. The National Freedom Front protested opposite Setsiripaya in Battaramulla this afternoon. They were seeking the release of Vimal Veerawangsa, who was placed in remand custody over a case currently being taken up in court. The All Ceylon Peasants Federation protested today, citing that a building obtained on rent by the Ministry of Agriculture is not being used and that a massive rent is being paid for it. They claim that if the funds are saved, it can be used to increase the compensation given to farmers to 50,000 rupees. The Engineering Diploma Holders Association and the Technical Officers Union jointly protested opposite the Ministry of City Planning and Water Supply in Battaramulla today. They allege that authorities are yet to resolve their issues. Employees attached to the Gaul and Mathura branches of the National Water Supply and Drainage Board protested today against the failure to arrest those who assaulted the Gaul district manager. The protest took place opposite the Gaul bus stand and in Pamburana, Mathura. Deputy postmasters in the Polonnaruwa district protested today against the assault on a postal worker. They protested opposite the main post office in Polonnaruwa and demanded that the attackers be arrested. Samurdhi beneficiaries in Gampar protested against the alleged attempt to slash Samurdhi benefits. They claim that there is an attempt to recover the sum of 2,500 rupees given to them as a housing aid. A protest took place in the Vallavela area on the Laggala-Bakamuna road this morning, citing a land issue. They claim that the government has reclaimed the lands given to them for cultivations. Traders demonstrated opposite the Tambuttegama weekly fair, citing that the relocation was not suitable for trading. Traders also demonstrated opposite the Mihintale weekly fair today, citing that even though the new building for the fair was completed, the local authority has failed to provide shop space to them. The Inter-University Students' Federation commenced a motorcade against private medical colleges from Peradeniya today. It is scheduled to reach Colombo in 3 days. A protest took place opposite the National Hospital in Colombo today against the private medical colleges.
We can witness a collapse in administration at the provincial level. The decision-making process at urban areas has been stalled, so the people tend to think that the only solution to all their issues is to get onto the streets and protest. A sum of 1 billion rupees is wasted on fuel due to traffic congestion, even when there are no protests. Many officers in Sri Lanka have failed in fulfilling a targeted workload. Economically, this is a harmful situation.
Views were expressed during the cabinet media briefing on the protests that were staged around the country.
When Mrs. Bandaranaike came into power, she said that NM Pereira tortured her. She said that strikes were organized on 362 days of the year. This is how the people utilize the freedom that they receive. This is the same in any third world country.
Then who is torturing this government?
There were plenty of people who loved to engage in strikes and demonstrations. However, they couldn't. Whenever they feel like it, they are reminded of Gotabaya, not Mahinda. They did not come out because of him. Now they are coming out and enjoying themselves. Let them do so for the first couple of years.
But Minister Kiriyalla said yesterday that even the government has a limit to its patience.
That is true. Mr. Bandaranaike was shot dead because he was patient.
Minister, will you deploy white vans as well?
No, we don't have to do that. It is a stupid move.
Your life, our news.
The Supreme Court today ordered the government to pay a sum of 100,000 rupees as compensation to military intelligence officer Kandegedara Priyawansa, who was the first suspect arrested in connection to the assassination of late journalist Lasantha Vikramatunga. The order was made after a FR petition was filed by Kandegedara Priyawansa was taken up in court today.
In his petition, Priyavansa notes that after he was arrested in 2010, he was denied bail and was held for over a year under detention orders and placed in the remand prison. He adds that despite being held as detectives failed to prove the charges against him, he was released. Priyavansa was reinstated in the military intelligence service after he was released. In his petition, he notes that his fundamental rights were violated as a proper investigation was not carried out following his arrest. Meanwhile, 2 other suspects connected to the assassination of late journalist Lasantha Wickrematunge were arrested by police.
The newly constructed building of the Kudagammana Paha Primary School in Berelihala, Tissamaharama was declared open today.
The building, which cost 5.5 million rupees, was built under the patronage of the Minister of Housing and Construction, Sajid Premadasa. If someone asks where the loans taken by this government goes to, I would like to tell them that on one hand they are used to develop the school system of this country. They are used to strengthen concepts like Langwam Pasala, Hondama Pasala, and also to eliminate the scarcity of essential medicinal drugs in the country. Now when it comes to blood tests, doctors will not tell you to go to the nearest suitable place to get your blood tested. So I would like to tell you that the money we received is being used on one hand to develop the education and medical field, and on the other to repay the loans that were taken at exorbitant interest rates by the previous government.
In more local news, altercations between private bus employees are reported frequently. Such an incident that took place recently was captured on CCTV cameras installed in one bus.
This altercation had taken place in the Thorapiti area on the Dambulla-Kurunegala main road. The injured bus driver has been treated at the Kurunegala General Hospital. He was operating a bus plying from Trincomalee to Colombo. We left Trincomalee at 3:05 and reached Malsirupur at 3:35. 3 persons boarded the bus. When I was heading to the Ambalampula junction, a pink color bus with the name Chatura overtook us. After it stopped, I passed it and moved ahead. No one boarded thereafter. When I passed the filling station, that bus stopped in front of me and I was assaulted.
British High Commissioner to Sri Lanka and the Maldives James Dorris engaged in an inspection tour of Trincomalee.
British High Commissioner to Sri Lanka and the Maldives James Dorris held discussions with the Chief Minister of the Eastern Province, Hafiz Nazir Ahmed. Following the discussion, the High Commissioner expressed his views to the media.
And we've been talking about issues including economic challenges, challenges facing families and particularly women, and about important national political issues, including the idea of a new constitution for Sri Lanka. We've also spoken about the drought that was affecting this region some months ago, and I know how much people have been suffering.
We discussed about the land issue as well. We had discussions as to how the land that is being held by the military at present can be released to the public expeditiously. We informed that the constitutional amendments need to be carried out soon as possible without being delayed.
A day after the Supreme Court upheld V.K. Sasikala's conviction in a disproportionate assets case, the AIA-DMK General Secretary surrendered before the Bengaluru trial court, which was shifted to a jail on the city's outskirts.
The Indian Supreme Court has turned down the request made by V.K. Sasikala to surrender to court in 4 weeks. Her lawyers have made this request from court taking a health condition into account. V.K. Sasikala Nadarajan visited late Tamil Nadu Chief Minister J. Jayalalitha's memorial today and made a pledge. The court hall where AIDMK General Secretary V.K. Sasikala is to surrender today has been shifted to the central jail at Parapana Agrahara due to security reasons. The Karnataka High Court Registrar accepted a request by Bengaluru City Police to shift the court hall in the city, citing security and other considerations. V.K. Sasikala was convicted by the Supreme Court in the disproportionate assets case and will now have to serve a sentence of 4 years. The convicted also includes Sasikala's two relatives, V.N. Sudhakaran and Elavarasi. The trial court had sentenced Sasikala and her two relatives to 4 years imprisonment with a fine of Indian rupees 100 million each. AIDMK General Secretary V.K. Sasikala today appointed TTV Dinakaran, her nephew, as Deputy General Secretary of the party. Just a few hours after Sasikala appointed her nephew as AIDMK Deputy General Secretary, Karupusamy Pandyan, party strongman in Down South, quit the party. He opposed the appointment of Dinakaran. Dinakaran was among those expelled from the party along with Sasikala by late Chief Minister J.J. Lalita in 2011 for their anti-party activities. They were only accepted into the party after their plea for an apology. In more trouble for V.K. Sasikala, AIDMK MLA from Madurai, S. Saravanan, filed a kidnapping case against her and Legislature Party leader Edappadi K. Palaniswamy in Kubathur police station. He alleged that the MLAs were put up in the resort by her against their will. TTV Dinakaran and Mapa Pandyan visited the resort where the MLAs are being held and held talks. Edappadi K. Palaniswamy was thereafter elected AIDMK Legislature Party leader, creating a more serious issue on the post of Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. Edappadi Palaniswamy had met Tamil Nadu governor to take claim to form government. Late Jayalalitha's niece Deepa Jayakumar extended her support to O. Pannirselvam.
Representatives of the United Nations in Sri Lanka and the European Union called on the Chief Minister of the Northern Province, C.V. Vigneswaran, today.
The UN is moving towards planning its interventions from 2017-2018. We, like the Chief Minister, are very keen to make sure that the Sustainable Development Goals mean that our contribution to development for the North is around the sustainability.
We have been through a number of important discussions on the assessment by the Chief Minister of the overall political situation in the country, and more particular about also the needs of his province, of the Northern Province. We are doing a number of things already with the UN in terms of reconciliation.
In sports news, opener Upul Taranga hammered an unbeaten 47 and Vikum Sanjaya bagged 3 wickets as Sri Lanka beat the Australian Prime Minister's 11 by 5 wickets in the 2020 series warm-up in Canberra.
Well, that's it from all of us here at the English news desk of News First. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mahina Bongzo.
And I'm Shahin Jarampati. Good night and take care.